Lesson 3.1, Video 2. So let's try an applied question in a word problem. Here we're asked to describe the independent and the dependent variables. Now these are kind of hard at first to interpret, but let's go back to a familiar way of doing things. If I were to make an XY table, and I read this question, and it says Jerry works at a hardware store. The more hours he works, the more money he's paid. So you say, well, how much money did he make? Or how much money can he make? Well, one would say that the amount of money he makes depends on how many hours he works. So he has something that he can control. He cannot control how much money he gets, but he can control how many hours he works. And by working so many hours, he will get the money. So you would put the number of hours over here, and you would put the amount of money he would get over here. So again, this is just an XY table. So because I put the hours first, this is called the independent variable. And because I had the money second, that is called the dependent variable. So in this question I would say the independent variable is number of hours he works, and the amount of money that he makes would be considered the dependent variable. So let's try that again on the next one. Let's make a table here. So this one's talking about he wraps gifts. He uses different amounts. So again, he uses different amounts of paper to wrap boxes of different sizes. So this one's a little bit more gray. So how do you decide what's in control? What is the independent variable? So let's think about this. How would I word this? You'd say, how much paper do I need? And you'd say, it depends on the size of the box. Or you could say, what size of box do I need? Or am I going to use? And you say, it depends on how much paper. Kind of interesting the way to think about it, and it's not very automatically clear cut. But one would say that you are going to choose the amount of paper, okay, depending upon what box they pick. So I would say the box is in control, because the size of the box will decide how much paper that you will use. If they bring out a small box, you use a small amount of paper. Bring out a big box, you'll use a lot of papers. And what that means is then that our independent variable is the size of the box, because we can pick any box we want, and the amount of paper will depend on that box. Alright, now we're going to look at things a little bit differently. Notice that we have a set of ordered pairs, and we are asked to express the relation as a table and a graph. So let's look at our x values. 0 and our y value is 4. That's this coordinate right here. Next we have -3 and our y value is 4. That's this one right here. Next one we have 5 and 2, and our last one is 1 and -1. Now express this as a graph. Okay, so we just did this part. Well, if we take it and we graph them, we have 0, 4, which is right there. We have -3, 4, which is right there. 5 and 2, right there. And then 1 and -1. Now, our last part of this question says, determine the domain and range. Well, we've already done this, because if you remember, when we put it in a table, all the x values are considered the domain. And the range are all the y values. So officially, if you were to write this down, you would say that my domain is 0, -3, 5, and 1. And my range is 4, 4, and you don't have to write that twice if you don't want to, 2, and negative 1. Or just 4, 2, and negative 1. You don't have to write the 4 twice. And this ends Lesson 3.1, Video 2.